Welcome. Welcome to Living Sufism. Thank you so much for joining us and making all of this possible. Let's begin by drawing our focus back to the overall theme of this year's Living Sufism, Love's Drum, the resilience of the human spirit. A few of us have remarked how love's drum is a kind of non-definitive term. What does that mean? What is love's drum? And it will likely be that later on in this series, maybe in the next few or towards the end of the series, we will actually get into the whole notion of what is love's drum. But for the time being, we're setting the stage for that understanding. And simply by focusing on the resilience of the human spirit. Kundika sent us a quote from Cynthia Bourgeot the other day, and I'll read that if I may. Resilience, forgiveness, trust, courage, and commitment are not the fruits of hope, but the wellsprings of it. It is from human resistance, from human resilience, from forgiveness, from kindness, from curiosity, commitment, openness. It is from these qualities of being that hope will arise and some sense of what is it that we should do in these difficult times. We began last month suggesting that we play with the idea of world worry. And over this series is actually inspired by the notes from the Open Path of Pierre Elias. And I'm always impressed by how interesting, how subtle and yet precise Pierre Elias's writings are. And world worry, the words world worry is a case in point. It's pretty obvious that, how to put it bluntly, we're in danger. There is marked peril abroad. Many of us look around at our drastically changing climate and the extreme weather events that are actually literally, physically impacting our lives. And we feel that, oh yes, climate change is devastating and it's something we really have to do something about, but what can I do? And there comes hopelessness, anxiety, and so forth. But others of us may feel that really the thing that we're really worried about isn't so much climate change, it's the war in Ukraine. It's the fragile quality of the economic system seen from certain points of view. It's the enormously abusive, divisive politics that is now becoming standard operating procedure. So for each of us, these words, world worry, will evoke a different thing, a different sense. And I think that by putting those words there, Pierre Elias is inviting us to remember that our fears and anxieties are here in our being. They're not out there. And the simplest way to talk about them is that they are world worry. And I hope and I suggest that over the course of these few months, we can be more clear about what is it that is actually in each of us, that worry. What is it that each of us, not necessarily following, some global sense that this is the real problem. Clearly, what is happening in the world is way too complex and multifaceted for any one of us to actually know what's happening. What we can know is what is it that's in my heart? What is it that's worrying me? What is disturbing my life? What is keeping me from sleeping at night? That kind of investigation, that kind of inquiry is at the heart of what we're doing together, for each of us to recognize that it's something here that needs to be addressed, not there. Yes, of course, there are a lot of problems and issues that we can address through our voting process, through our activism, etc. But ultimately, it's here that it's happening. In that process, Pure Elias points to several steps, a sequence of perception and motion that an individual can take to deal with world worry. And he begins with this idea of the undefended heart. And that is the theme today. We're hoping that today we will be able to experience together, what does it mean to be defended, undefended? What does the undefended heart, what is that? What does that do for us? The essence of today is for us to experience what it means to be defended, undefended, to experience it, not to intellectualize about it. In this essay that Sabah wrote called The Undefended Heart, she points out that undefended heart isn't an object. It's an event. She calls it mystical resonance. So what would you call it? To begin this process of experiencing undefendedness or defendedness, because sometimes it's appropriate to be defended, I suppose, we'll begin with a conversation. And our conversants will be Pure Elias, Angelica MacArthur Klein, Ayaz Landman, and Sabah Raphael Reed.
Hey, and everybody unmute themselves on this 4. That's right. That's lovely. Elias, are you with us? Are you hearing us?
I am.
Yeah.
Is that working? Yeah.
It is. Yes, it is. And thank you, Puran, for the introduction. So yeah, we thought now just to have an undefended, unrehearsed conversation where we bring together our responsiveness to that invitation, the evocation of the undefended heart. What do those words evoke in us? And we're going to start with Pure Elias, with you to share with us your response to that.
Thanks, Sabah. And hello, everyone. I want to just reiterate what a little bit of what Puran pointed us to, because on the one hand, an undefended heart, regardless of the conditions of the world and the situation that humanity is and we are finding ourselves in, the undefended heart is it's a beautiful, let's say, guidance for how we would like to live our lives at best. But here in this series, the Living Sufism series, we're using that phrase, as I understand it, so to focus on how can we nurture spiritual health or the resilience of the human spirit in a way that'll help us keep steady, us and future generations, through what's coming down, through the whole increasing social chaos and disruption of societies, as well as the loss of ecosystem health, and basically in the face of humanity's overbearing and destructive impact on the biosphere. So in that context, undefended heart, well, as Puran just mentioned, well, many of us may not be experiencing firsthand this kind of this destabilization of societies and ecosystems, but certainly it's becoming more and more evident, and it will seep into our lives and certainly our children's and grandchildren's lives. So that's so the question remains then, undefended heart, why that? To me, the undefended heart evokes the sense of openness, of not contracting into self-protection or selfishness, into any fear-based reactions. The undefended heart, it implies an openness, doesn't it? This event, as Sabah spoke of it, it's being vulnerable to deep feeling without being crushed by those feelings. Yeah, be able to that's what that quality of resilience implies for me, that we're able to feel deeply, but not be destroyed by that, be able to still be present. Then a lot of words come up, then being capable of empathy, compassion, generosity, and presence in the moment. And all of that, it's wonderful to say those virtuous words, and yet what are they based on? What are they grounded in? If the undefended heart is truly undefended, is it not subject to the whims and these destructive winds that are flailing through our world? And to me, it implies a groundedness in faith. And I don't mean necessarily the religious narrative, but a faith, let's say, grounded in love. That would be just as a kind of sense of, it's not that all is all right, but that we find in ourselves that silence, that spaciousness, that the groundedness that is our interdependence and interbeing with all. And that's our foundation, our ground, our wholeness. And when we can know that right through, it's not just an intellectual conviction, but right through our whole being, then we can find ourselves, then our undefendedness does not make us, let's say, well, then we can't be crushed. Then we can stay steady through whatever comes. And I believe that this steadiness, this faithfulness is at the heart of what's going to see us and our species through, if we can find it. Obviously, many of our brothers and sisters will not be able to, will react in confusion and bewilderment, and then it's up to us, I think, in whatever situations come, to evoke this undefended presence and openness to whatever situations arrive. How to do that is a whole other question. Is what we're all about too in our practice and our presence. But enough talk from me. Can I toss the baton to you, Angelica?
Okay.
Before you go on, could I just mention that for some of us, if we stay in gallery view, we don't see the four presenters by themselves. So if you're seeing the whole gallery, you might try switching to speaker view so that you can just focus on our four lovely presenters. Angelica.
Thank you. Thank you, Elias. When I think of the undefended heart and our variety of practices that we have to reach for that state in ourselves, I find the concept of windows and doors and blinds and shutters evocative and helpful, because, and I think we have to be compassionate towards ourselves and each other here, because we always have a certain window of tolerance, don't we, for experiences, and the openness of the window will vary along the way and with different experiences. Sometimes an undefended heart has the maturity and the readiness to throw open the windows and feel an experience that arrives, whatever it is, against the skin, and invite it in. Maybe a truly undefended heart is one which has the capacity to invite any experience that arrives, whether it be joy or sadness, fear, despair, grief, helplessness, anxiety, desire, and so on, whilst knowing that I am not that experience, but I invite it and hold it as part of what's here. And when I think of the defended heart, of course, this then evokes the sense of the closing of the blinds and the windows, a defended heart pulling down the shutters, because there's a fear of experience itself. The heart contracts conscious experience and puts forms and structures around it to make an illusion of safety, of an illusion of knowing what's really happening here, and a sense that it's possible to inhabit these structures that have been made. And of course, we have many social and cultural mechanisms that help us to keep our doors and windows contracted and closed in our heart. And sometimes we can then remind each other that we don't need to defend our hearts quite so rigidly against difficult experiences or experiences of fear. And we can evoke practices of peeping through the blinds a little bit at a time to get a slither of a feared experience, and give ourselves the chance to learn that we can trust ourselves to know it and be with it a little more. And also the body is so operative here, because I think while our heart remains closed or defended, the body holds the news. The body is very good at holding difficult to bear experiences until they can be tolerated by the heart. So in our body, we can find tension in the muscles, in the guts, in the throat, the jaw, that will gradually release its hold when we can invite into consciousness with curiosity what might be in that muscular tension. And of course, it's when we can hold a difficult experience in an undefended heart that the experience itself starts to move through us and to eventually transform itself naturally into part of our being. An undefended heart, as Elias told us, is a strong heart, because it can hold the vulnerability and bend and open rather than crack and break in the contraction. And just to reflect that, I think those of us who are here right now are pretty lucky to be in a position to be thinking about these experiences in the relatively still waters of the parts of the globe we might be sitting in, which are not at war and not in a state of famine or fire or flood. New Zealand now undergoing dreadful times out of the blue. And I think in the situations of actual catastrophe, I think we really see people naturally undefending their hearts. There's less of a choice. There's more of a, okay, how do I do this? I react, I protect myself, and I reach out to others. And there's this kind of a rightness and an openness of heart that seems to naturally emerge at such times. Lastly, when I think of the notion of the undefended heart, I wonder if in these comfortable lives, with the illusions of safety, control, choice, that we've built ourselves too many walls and shutters and blinds and doors. And is this what we really wanted? Have we, in the process of closing off our natural responsivity, sensitivity to the whole of life, closed ourselves, closed our natural connection and our natural coexistence that we now miss and trying to and want to rediscover. Before I hand the baton, I just want to say as well that I want to make a plea for us to trust our children and our children's children, because I just often wonder whether somehow they will carry emotional intelligences that we're looking for, we don't know about. We can be concerned for them, but also I want to trust my children that they will find it within themselves as they go forward in ways that I might not even know about right now. Anyway, that's a lot. Ayaz, the baton
is mine.
is yours.
Very much, Angelica. Wow, following that. And I suppose bringing it back to my own experience, even the experience right now of somehow having to say something clever and good and get it right and, dare I say, be the best. And all the pressure that brings and the way that takes me out of the present moment and into having to do something. And my historic fear of getting it right, needing to get it right, needing to compete, be the best, whatever it might be. And how that repeats itself over and over and over again in subtle ways, gross ways. And I watch myself. And one of the things I'm learning, and I love the use of the present continuous as a, that this is a practice, an ongoing practice. I don't arrive. So it's present continuous, it's ongoing. And the practice has moments. It has moments of the undefended heart, which in my moments of it, I experience as sovereign. And that for me, the heart, its natural position is sovereign and undefended. What then comes in on top of it is all my stuff. And I'm much more compassionate with myself about that than I used to be. Because historically, I would find that I tense up, I've got it wrong, so I beat myself up, and it's just layers of defense that build on themselves until, the knowing that I should have an undefended heart becomes the defense of the and so on it goes. So it's like when I'm writing poetry, it's practicing as a therapist. How do I get out of the way? How do I, to use Elias's beautiful phrase, allow myself to be resourced. And I know with my practice and over time that as I allow that, something comes through me. And it's something that is through me, but not of me. And I feel that is the undefended place. And I have actually written a poem for my little sort of, I don't know what you call it, this discussion space. And it's called the Undefended Heart. And one of the things that I've been playing with a lot amongst, as well as sovereignty, is the notion of the unknown and the unanswered, and the degree to which fear is driven by our attempt to answer the question, to know what's going on here. And the truth is, I have no idea. And the extent to which I have no idea is the extent to which I can relax back into what Elias was talking about, faith. Fear not, only have faith. So the unanswered, and the degree to which the current mess of the world, in inverted commas, stems from our desire to conquer it, to colonize it, the patriarchy to kind of force itself upon, to turn the world into an object, to turn the world into something of ours, rather than recognize that the undefended heart does, that I am it. So I have no need to colonize it. I have no need, I am within it. And that's the practice, and it's a beautiful space. So here's the poem, The Undefended Heart. The undefended heart, what is it? But an internal sky. A place, if we can call it that, for the unknown and the unanswered to flirt and flourish until, like my favorite rose, wise with seasons, it becomes old wood, and in its own time, a lover of God.
Mm.
So practice, practitioners. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes practitioners. It makes us practitioners. It brings us to the practice. It brings us to the rigor. And that's the beauty of what's being done here. It's the beauty of what Elias is leading. It's the beauty of the discipline. And bless you all. And with that, to my spiritual sister, named by Elias at the same time on the same night as me, Saba.
Thank you. Oh, I'm with you in the internal sky. I really don't have many words to add to all of the beautiful words that have been spoken. I just say that undefended heart evokes in me an immense tenderness. It's a quality of, actually almost of nakedness, naked before God. And I have a sense of the undefended heart, like the sky you speak of, Ayaz, as being a mystical resonance that is always there. And the words undefended heart, when I hear them, they're like a zikr. They remind me of the mystical resonance of the undefended heart. For me, it's a kind of other way of saying pure presence, that when we're graced, we practice, but we may also be graced to be attuned to that resonance. And oh, it blows me away. It's wonderful. And I often feel tearful when the term the undefended heart brings me to tears, a little bit like the other phrase that does that, Elias, that you use, is be always coming home. It's a remembrance. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So let's have speaker view. And I am going to invite us now to prepare to go into small groups. And it would be good if you had a pencil and paper to hand to jot a couple of suggestions down for this. So when you get into your small groups, the question will be the same. What is evoked for you by the notion of the undefended heart? What is this experience like for you? Particularly, how do you experience it in your body? And how does the experience get clouded for you by the natural human defenses that you find in yourself? And when you arrive into your small groups, I'd like to suggest that you maybe have a timekeeper in the group and maybe take 3 or 4 minutes just in silence together. And during the silent time, you could just go in and reflect on your defended and your undefended internal experience. What does it feel like in your body when your heart feels defended? What do you notice specifically going on physically in those muscles and guts and so on when you feel fearful and self-protective? And does this tend to happen to you in response to particular situations, or is it a habit that's built up over a long time? Do you know what makes you defend your heart? And then ask yourself what it feels like in your experience and in your body, what it feels like when your heart feels open, when you're really there, or should I say here? What happens to your breathing, your chest, your throat? And what is it for you that can allow your defenses to melt away and for your heart sense to open? So after 3 or 4 minutes of exploring those in your own experience in silence, maybe one of you could raise a hand or start to talk, and you're invited to take turns to share what you found in your experience with each other. And when you're speaking, when you're the speaker, you can take about 5 minutes. Look after yourself. Take your time. Look after the truth of your own experience without any particular self-evaluation or self-judgment. You find what you find. Reach for curiosity and compassion for yourself instead. And when you're listening, watch how it feels to listen openly to the other without any particular evaluation or judgment of what you're hearing. To internally reach for your own place of curiosity and compassion for the other person's truth, where they are, what they find in themselves, what they're sharing with you. Compassion for the intelligence of the journey of other people's, your companions' lived hearts. Okay, so enjoy your time together, and we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I think now everybody is back. If I could suggest to you that you put your screen into speaker mode for this next section. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to offer an embodied practice that will help us communally to attune to the energy of the undefended heart. This is a practice that has been with me for a very long time, and I find it immensely helpful. And I feel really honoured to share it with you today. Before I take us through it, I just want to say a few things about why I find it so helpful. The truth is that increasingly, I do find myself overwhelmed by what is happening in the world. When I turn my gaze to it, when I allow the realities to come in close, I feel immensely powerful emotions arising. I feel the emotion of grief, of fear, of sorrow, of shame. And I also have feelings sometimes which are not that familiar to me really, but feelings of helplessness and even sometimes feelings of hopelessness. And I know that I'm not alone in that. And it's when I have those feelings that what I notice is I begin to turn away. I begin to close my heart down. I begin to avert my gaze. I can feel myself separating from the world. I can in some ways feel myself falling asleep. And it's at that moment that this practice can be helpful, because what it does is it helps me, and I hope it will help you too, to ground myself, to center myself, to feel held in the arms of the beloved, to know myself as being just a small part of a much greater, beautiful heart resonance that holds everything. And when I'm able to turn towards what's happening with this sense of spaciousness, I'm able to bear witness to all those things, including my own fear, my own powerful emotions that make me want to turn away. It's a way of staying present and awake and feeling resourced. So I'm just going to move my chair back a little bit and I'll introduce and take you through the practice. This is a practice that can be done sitting. I'm going to stay sitting. It can be done standing. It can even be done lying down. And actually, sometimes I find if I wake in the middle of the night, troubled by the worries of the world, which I do, I sometimes go to this practice even lying in the bed. Okay, so you don't need to stare fixedly at the screen. You can listen to my voice, you can soft gaze, you can check in with what I'm doing, but there's no correct way to do this. What I'm going to invite you to do is to attune to the energy of your own body. The wisdom of your body will lead you. To begin with, we'll pay attention to our posture. So wherever your feet are touching the earth, wherever your body is in contact with the earth, I invite you just to bring your attention there, to really feel the groundedness beneath you. And actually, underneath the feet, in the arch of the feet, there's a wonderful energy point called the bubbling spring point. It's a point that can open and close in the body. Just imagine that opening and closing so that the energy of earth is rising up and falling down, and you can feel your connectedness with the energy of earth. Now, if you're able, just lengthen your spine upright. Long neck, you may want to slightly tuck your chin in so that your crown chakra can open to the heavens. And here you invite the energy of heaven in to flow into the body and out again. In actual fact, the energies of heaven and earth are always here. We are of the earth. We are of heaven. It's a total illusion that we are separate. And just to strengthen that flow of heaven and earth energy, we're going to make a movement of the hands. This is a movement which you'll be familiar with if you practice Tai Chi or Qigong, raising up the hands, almost like circling a ball, rolling the ball. Hands go down. Draw up the energy of earth, draw down the energy of heaven. You imagine that yin-yang symbol and yourself placed in the center of it. Heaven and earth, dark and light, yin and yang, rolling that energy. And here we just bring our hands to face our hearts, the alchemical chamber of the heart. This is one of our greatest gifts, that we're able to alchemize the energy of heaven and earth in the heart center. So just, you might actually even feel that rolling quality still going on as the energy has been activated. And now we're going to open the heart. This movement is beautiful. It's like opening a scroll. We're going to open the heart, open the sacred text of our lives. And fingers pointing outwards long, thumb to heaven, little finger to earth, along the horizon, the point of transformation, the point of integration. And now I invite you to gently close the hands and then open them again. So again, this is a feeling of a pulsing energy, opening the heart. It's a movement a little bit like a bird in flight. Let's just open that heart energy together. I often think here of Mary Oliver's poem, Wild Geese, the geese announcing our place in the family of things. Here we are, our place in the family of things. Okay. Now, this time when your hands are open, fingers long, just still yourself there. And have a sense of your fingers, the fingertips opening. And out through your fingers, out through the walls of the room where you are, out into the world, out around, embracing the whole world, feeling this sense of interbeing and interconnection with all creation. You may have a feeling of light coming out of your fingers. Sometimes I have a sense of silken thread, weaving, being part of the woven mystery of life. We are not separate. We are all part of each other. And bring your hands together again. And here, I just want you to make a fist, a strong fist, just to illustrate something, because now we're going to open the heart, but you're going to keep your hands in a fist form. I mean, to go slowly here, you just pull the hands apart. Get to this point here. It's a little bit like a chest expander. This energy, this is a really important energy. This is the energy of warrior. It's an energy that I have an excess of. I can get stuck with this energy, but it has its place. But now I want you to go further and wider, just keeping your fingers as fists. What do you notice? It's really hard when we're balled into a fist to feel our interconnection with all creation. I just invite you to soften your hand, fingers long. Do that a few times, into a fist, but then relax. Pir Elias often tells us to relax, and we're doing it now. Just feel it. That's wonderful. Heart open, strong back, soft front, the yin and yang of us all. Okay, now draw the hands together again. And this time, we're going to tune into something really magical. As you unfurl the heart, you get to a moment. I get to a moment where, to begin with, I'm tuning into the heart in my body. The heart is in me. But there is a moment, and it will be different for each of us, where you suddenly feel that you're in the heart. You're not the heart in you, you're in the heart. This is the moment of surrender to the beloved. Here we are, held in the heart, the undefended heart. And actually, I always find myself slightly moving back. It's like a kind of, its room is buoyancy, falling back into the arms of the beloved. We're not alone. This energy that flows through all creation is always available to us. It's divine, it's sacred, it's inescapable. We just sometimes fall asleep and forget that it's there. Okay. And in this place where communally, collectively, we are channeling the energies of the undefended heart, we're going to offer a blessing into the world for ourselves, for each other, our friends and families, our communities, our ancestors and our descendants, for all humanity, and for the more than human world. We're offering this. May the ocean of kindness hold us all in its tender embrace. May we know ourselves as both seed and star, resourced by the mysteries of heaven and earth. And in the darkest of places, as well as the light, may all beings remember we are loved and we are completely and utterly whole. Okay, dear friends, what I suggest we do now is that you just rub your hands like that to come back into the body. If you've been in the etheric realm, it's sometimes helpful just to come back into this form. Rub your face over your head and to the heart. Ooh. I hope you felt held in that energy. I certainly did. And this practice, which I know versions of this will be familiar to many of you, but it's wonderful to do alone and it's wonderful to do together. It kind of amplifies the resonance of what we're reaching into. And if you go on to the Living Sufism website, you will find there a video, 45 minutes, like rather longer guided meditation, Circle of the Heart meditation, that you may find interesting. And if any of you want to converse with me about the practice, then please do contact me on Sabah, SABAH @sufiway.org. I'd love to hear from you. But now I think it's over to you, Paran.
Thank you, Sabah. Thank you so much. So as we bring this session to a conclusion, may I just underscores some of the things that I've learned, which I think might be useful in terms of continuing to explore these words, the undefended heart. Obviously, and I'm sure many of you can agree, we're at the border of language in terms of our ability to really convey what is meant by these two words. But what I gleaned from what we've experienced today is whatever the undefended heart is, it's an experience. And that means that it is always changing and that it will be different in different circumstances. And the quartet of voices that suggested the sovereignty of the heart, the pure presence of being, the embodied sense of heart, suggests to me that there are many ways to explore, inquire into this quality of being that we're calling the undefended heart. And so I'm encouraging us to continue to explore, inquire, be open to, listen to what this could possibly mean. Surely, and Sabah's practice points to this, it's not something that we can do for ourselves necessarily. Certainly, sure, of course, there's some state that we must be in to attract those energies. But for me, the essence of Sabah's practice was let the divine in, let the divine undefend you. It's not something we can necessarily do for ourselves. However, we can develop a quality of awareness that notices when we've closed, when we're pushing back, when we're refusing in a negative way, and when we're welcoming and accepting and recognizing the hand of God in everything that happens. This is, in my understanding, a mystical state. And so we cannot, beat ourselves up because we're not doing it right, or because, I'm being defended at this point. Of course we will be defended. The other thing that I'm gleaning from this conversation today is that the body, as a resonant chamber of closing and opening, is an extremely important instrument, especially the hands. And I would say that as we go forward to continue to explore this quality of being, may I offer a charge, an assignment, as it were, for the month ahead. Please continue, let us continue to pay attention to when we're defended and when we're undefended. The supremely easiest way to do that is to pay attention in our interpersonal relationships, because for me, and it may be the same for you, it is most evident to me in an interpersonal relationship when I become defended. I can feel what that defendedness is like. Likewise, in interpersonal spaces, it's most dramatically clear to me when I'm open and accessible, when I'm listening, when I'm accepting. And so I invite us to, over the month ahead, continue to be aware in our interpersonal conversations, our most intimate interpersonal spaces and our social interpersonal spaces, when something happens that goes, oh, like for me, it's when I feel misunderstood or unappreciated. And what happens in my body, apart from a kind of a tightening in the chest, is that I suddenly start thinking about me. Suddenly I'm present in this, where a minute ago I wasn't. This is one way to continue this exploration. It's vital, in my opinion, that we turn this into experience. This is, after all, living Sufism. In addition to that charging, that suggestion, that invitation, these instructions, I want to offer a challenge. We're in the process of developing the web space, and on Tuesday or Wednesday, probably it'll be on Wednesday, we will send out an email with a link to the page and the recording on that page of this session, and the recording of Sabah's Circle of the Heart attunement and some other resources. In that email, we'll also invite you to do something that will help us make this a more living community. But one of the limitations of the Zoom format is that we're speaking to you and we don't get this back. And because of the limitations of time, it's not feasible for us to open the mics and invite everyone to speak. However, as part of your continuing investigation of the undefended heart, could you do this for us, for yourselves, for us as a community? Record yourself on Zoom, 3 to 5 minutes, continuing to explore and speak out loud and talk about your experience of this. And please, by all means, if you want to contradict anything or raise questions, do so. In a 3 to 5 minute video on Zoom, we will send you instructions on how to do that, in case you don't know. Because all you need to do is turn on your Zoom, speak as you would speak to any one of us, and when you're done, send us the link to that video. We will gather those videos and we will put that in the album that we're creating. It's just in the beginning stages, the Love's Drum album. We'll say more about this in the email that we send you. To close, I'll remind us that, human nature is that sometimes we're defended, sometimes we aren't. Sometimes it's absolutely appropriate to be defended. If there's someone who is toxic in your life, put up those borders, put up those screens, put up those walls if you need to. Of course. We're not inviting us to an untenable state of vulnerability. We're simply saying, just watch when it closes, when it opens. And there's a beautiful poem of Rumi's, you're probably all familiar with it. And if I may, I'd like to close with this. This poem points to that. Hey, this is life. We open, we close. We're receptive, we aren't. We get it right, we get it wrong. Isn't that fun? Rumi says, your grief for what you've lost lifts a mirror up to where you're bravely working. Expecting the worst, you look, and instead, here's the joyful face you've been wanting to see. Your hands open and close, open and close. If your hands were always a fist or always stretched open, you would be paralyzed. Your deepest presence is in every small contracting and expanding. Your deepest presence is in every small contracting and opening. The two as beautifully balanced and coordinated as bird wings. Beloveds, let us fly and keep our feet on the ground. Thank you so much, everyone.